Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Clocked In with the Press, hosted at Altman Studios in beautiful downtown Brentwood, California. In this podcast, we highlight news stories, individuals, and organizations that deserve your attention. This is your host, Melissa van Ruiten, clocking in. Today, we're talking to Knightsen Elementary School District Superintendent Harvey Yurkovich. But before we jump into today's conversation, let's hear a quick word from this episode's sponsor.
Today's episode is sponsored by our friends at Sip and Scoop in downtown Brentwood. Sip and Scoop delivers smiles for miles, sip by sip and scoop by scoop. Gelato, Italian ice, and signature coffee beverages are just a few of the delicious treats on their menu. Stop by Sip and Scoop at 234 Oak Street in downtown Brentwood to get your fix. They're also on DoorDash.
Thank you so much to our sponsor. Hello and welcome. I don't know if I should call you Harvey or Mr. Yurkovich.
Please call me Harvey.
But thank you so much for being here. If you could just take a quick moment to introduce yourself and just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, my name is Harvey Yurkovich. I'm the superintendent of the Knightsen Elementary School District. My family moved out to Knightsen in 1980 from Antioch, where I attended Knightsen School from 1st to 8th grade. I'm a 1992 graduate of Liberty High School, after which I attended LMC for 2 years and then graduated from Humboldt State University with my degree in wildlife management. This is my 22nd year in education. I started out as an instructional aide, migrated over to a special education teacher and then science in the middle school, and got into administration. And this is my 15th year in administration.
Wonderful. And so for a little bit, you actually did double duty as the principal at Knightsen Elementary and superintendent. Was that tricky?
Yeah.
Was it good?
Yeah. You know, Knightsen has a history of a principal superintendent role. When I was a student there, it was always the principal superintendent. It became more tricky when Old River opened up because now you have two separate sites.
Sure.
And anytime the superintendent's present at the other school, the one school's left without a principal. It was doable a long time ago, back before the local control funding formula, LCAP era. A lot more accountability has come down, and that means a lot more reporting and a lot more oversight in schools, and that's why the superintendent role is critical nowadays.
Sure. A lot more paperwork, it sounds like.
It is. There's a lot more paperwork, many more meetings, and just a lot more coordination of services that are mandated by the state and federal government.
Sure.
Which, a long time ago, if your district was able to handle it, you instituted it and you did it. But now those have become more and more mandated.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of a long time ago, since you grew up in Knightsen and attended Knightsen schools, are you able to give our listeners a brief rundown on the history of the district?
Well, the Knightsen School District has been around since the late 1800s. There was a school down the street called Eden Plains School, which now you can actually visit the old Eden Plains School at the East County Historical Society.
We love the Historical Society.
Yeah, there's a huge history in Knightsen. Little known fact that at one point in time in the 1910s, around that area, Knightsen was the biggest producer of celery
Interesting.
in the state. There was also about 5 or 6 dairies where they were one of the biggest producers of milk in the state. And the train, if you've ever visited Knightsen, the train is part of our culture and heritage. It was a very busy train stop there where goods and services would come in and leave town. And so when you come to Knightsen, you'll see the park, you'll see the caboose. It's a lot more than just a caboose. It's part of our history. Yeah.
Very cool. So from that bustling train and agriculture, Knightsen's gotten a little smaller over the years. That's definitely no secret, which can also affect the numbers at the public schools. So I know that the district relies heavily on interdistrict transfers. My own 2 boys attend Knightsen on an interdistrict transfer. We love it. But tell our listeners a little bit about those numbers and why it's helpful and all of that good stuff.
Well, interdistrict transfers has been a part of our culture for a long time. As other areas around the Knightsen district has grown up, Knightsen has stayed pretty level in terms of population size and school enrollment for a long time. We do rely heavily on our interdistrict transfers. We like to think that our Our students that come from the Byron, Antioch, Oakley, and Brentwood school districts, they enhance what Knightsen is. They come from far and wide. We like to think that we're a school of choice for many families. We are a K-8 district, which is pretty unique in the East County. Parents can come and drop off their second grader and their seventh grader at the same school. It also affords us the ability to have buddy classrooms where upper grades work with lower grades. There's a sense of responsibility in our middle schoolers to be professional and caring and understanding of our younger students, which really makes us unique and really helps to preserve our culture. So we love the K-8 model. We love the families that we serve, whether they live in the Knightsen community or if they come from far and wide.
Yeah, and there's definitely a lot of support for everybody. I just, personally, I know when I was freaking out about COVID and what was going to happen there and what it was going to look like going forward, you took the time to call me personally, and that's not something that you're going to get with every school district, and I really appreciated that. It meant a lot. So what would you view some of your biggest challenges as superintendent of Knightsen?
I think it's nothing that's specific to Knightsen per se. First and foremost is managing the budget, on the superintendent level. I mean, we want to make sure that our schools are safe and welcoming and have all the supports that we need for kids, but that comes at a financial cost. Nothing comes for free in schools. So to make sure that we have a healthy budget, that we can afford providing those supports, that we can support enrichment activities, is very important. And so what I call the 10,000 foot view is where I'm at as a superintendent. It's really important not to lose sight of the 50 foot view, what's going on in the classrooms. And that's where it all happens with our teachers and instructional support. Sure. And those are our people, our boots on the ground, so to speak, that are working directly with students. But every decision that's made at the 10,000 foot view directly impacts what happens in classrooms. I think another challenge, again, not unique to Knightsen, but we have two very different, vibrant cultures between our schools, between Old River Elementary and Knightsen Elementary. Knightsen Elementary typically pulls from kids in the farm community. 4-H is a really big factor in what Knightsen does. It's not uncommon for kids to want to bring their chickens to show in class, and we love that. We have Old River Elementary, whose primary attendance pool comes from the lakes over in Discovery Bay. And there, it's a different culture. It's a lot of families work in the tech industry, and more of them commute, and so it brings a different feel. Both are very amazing schools, and we want to recognize their individuality and help them forge that culture at Old River because it's a newer school. And at Knightsen, we want to retain that culture, even though it seems like around our district, it just keeps growing and growing and growing. We still want to remain that small, tight-knit community that has a, real big respect for the agricultural heritage that
You
is in
definitely
this
do
area.
an excellent job. I know a lot of the events that are held. What was it last year? There was an event that there were dancing horses.
Yeah.
And it was people from the local community. And I love the way that you highlight the community, the history, you bring it all together, and yet still encourage students to pursue their own interest. It's not like force fed, if that makes
Right.
sense. Wonderful. So coming back to your hometown school, the school that you grew up in, and now acting as superintendent of the district, what have been some of the biggest rewards for you?
Anytime that you can come home and service your community, I mean, it makes you feel good about what you do. It's a huge responsibility to be a superintendent of the district, but when you're servicing the children of people that you grew up with, and even my niece and nephew attended Knightsen school, so it makes it deeply personal.
Yeah.
When you grow up, you want to move away and just to go explore that world out there. But not only to come back to the town that you grew up in, but to be one of the largest employers in town, and to service people's children in town. It's quite the honor. I mean, it's more than just a job for me. It's deeply personal because, I grew up with a lot of the families whose kids are attending now. And even if I didn't grow up with them directly, I probably knew somebody that was in their family or just moved to the area like yourself and have, grown to just have a good relationship with and welcome into our small community. So it's more than just showing up and, hey, I'm your superintendent. It's, I go to that post office almost,
Sure. I mean,
regularly.
and knowing everything you do directly affects the community, because you're raising these children to be contributing members of the community going forward. And so you're going to want to do your best by them, I think is really great. How else would you say you're utilizing your experiences to support, the administrators, the teacher, and the staff?
Before I was at Knightsen, I worked at the Liberty High School District as an instructional aide. I worked in Brentwood as a science and health teacher. I was in Oakley for 10 years as a vice principal and principal. And all of those experiences have helped me bring professional development, connections, resources back to Knightsen. And I think that experience of, once again, the kid who wanted to move away only to come back, the educator who was out there in the East County that gets to see how these other districts work and how they tap into resources, and to bring those experiences back and those resources back to Knightsen has been hugely critical in our ability to move forward as a district. It's nice to be able to have a trusting colleague in a neighboring district to say, hey, I really like how you're doing this. Can I come over and check it out? That's something, as a small district, you can do a lot of things in-house, but you're trying to reinvent the wheel when there are other examples in neighboring districts. So I think that outreach has served us well, not only from my end, but we have 2 principals that came from the Liberty Union High School District. We have other teachers that have come from outside districts that have brought in some wonderful resources for us. And I think that's hugely critical.
That's
to be able to
fantastic.
maintain that.
Yeah. And you're like kind of the prodigal son coming back to
Well,
Knightsen.
yeah.
We're going to go ahead and take another quick break to hear from this episode's sponsor, but stick around because when we're back, we're going to be talking about mental health for students, the new lunches being offered, and what else is on the horizon for the Knightsen School District.
Today's episode of Clocked In with the Press is brought to you by our friends at Sip and Scoop in downtown Brentwood. Sip and Scoop started out as a food truck, serving coffee, hot cocoa, and desserts on the go, but the demand was so high that they had to open a shop at 234 Oak Street. Here at Clocked In, we love Sip and Scoop. They're just a few doors down from our offices, and we're there often enough that they know our names and orders. It's like Cheers, but better, because there's dessert. Try their cold brew coffee, or choose a latte or Americano for a classic coffee drink that can't be beat. And we haven't even talked about their breakfast sandwiches and avocado toast. Have I mentioned the root beer floats and the iced lemonades? Those are my personal favorites. Okay, obviously I could talk about food all day, but here's the point. You gotta go to Sip and Scoop. Visit them at 234 Oak Street in downtown Brentwood, or have Sip and Scoop brought to you wherever you are by DoorDash. Having an event? Let Sip and Scoop cater it. Give them a call at 925-684-7710 to find out more.
Thanks so much and welcome back. So, we're finally seeming to bounce back from COVID, which is great. But now we have a lot of news about monkeypox, which is less great. How has the district been approaching this new situation?
Well, I think a lot of what we learned and instituted with the COVID pandemic is going to serve us well through what may materialize with monkeypox, because monkeypox is transmitted through close physical contact. A lot of the disinfecting piece of classrooms, the regular disinfecting that we were doing during COVID, is going to serve us well. The distancing piece, we're not necessarily, that 6 feet socially distant, but we are still keeping our hands and our feet to ourselves in schools, which is going to serve us well. There are certain areas that we have to take a little more of a precaution. I'm a wrestling coach at Liberty High School for the women's team, and if this gets into the wrestling community, that can pose a problem because by nature, wrestling is close physical contact.
Sure.
Talking with the health department, we still have our regular meetings regarding COVID. Monkeypox has come up. It has not seen much transmission at all in schools, so I'm not too terribly worried about it. A mask will not protect you from monkeypox.
Correct.
That's been a big question on our parents' minds of, are we going to have to go back to masks? No, we're probably not going to have to go back to masks as a result of monkeypox. It's just like anything else. If you see something on your child or your student, if it's a pustule, a blister, go get it checked out, and they may have to stay home for 2 weeks.
Don't just ask Facebook. Go to your doctor.
Go to your doctor.
Put that out there. Don't ask social media. Right. Call your pediatrician.
Call your pediatrician. They will want to see pictures of it. They'll be able to tell you exactly what it is or what it is not.
Perfect. So, Perfect. I know my kids are big huggers.
Yep.
And teaching them, obviously, about consent is a big thing as far as hugging goes. But, just being honest with them and letting them know, hey, this is happening. And, maybe just take extra precautions sort of thing.
Exactly. That's all that's being asked right now. So Perfect. It's nothing like the pandemic where, schools were shut down overnight.
Sure.
Nothing like that.
Good.
Yep.
Excellent. And then on to kind of the next thing that maybe I almost consider it a silent pandemic. So Governor Newsom recently announced his master plan for kids' mental health, which has obviously been a big discussion, kind of back and forth. How is Knightsen planning to address that? And what resources do they already have in place that address mental health in the student population?
Well, we knew all along that extended quarantine and lockdown is going to have a negative effect on our kids. We didn't know how big of an effect it was going to be until they returned. What we're seeing is that it affected many kids differently. You'll have some kids that show outward signs, and that could be depression, it could be anxiety, but there's a lot of signs that kids are holding inside as well. Prior to the pandemic, we had character education, which mostly focused on disagreeing appropriately, being respectful to one another. We've incorporated more of the wellness portion of it, the more social emotional learning, to the more it's okay to not be okay, that we all need some help sometimes. We have a counselor right now at Knightsen. He comes in 1 day a week. Great guy. He's a retired counselor from Oakley that I've worked with for years. We're in the process of bringing another part-time counselor in for Old River. We have online support as well for kids that are in crisis that need to talk to a counselor right then. Of course, our principals and are phenomenal at working with kids because of the personal relationships they have, and not only with the kids but the families. We've subscribed to a program called Care Solace, and that was through the County Office of Education. And what Care Solace is, it's an online platform that we can refer parents to get mental health services, not just for their students, but if it's a family crisis, there could be family therapy there too. It gets really specific on what type of help are you seeking, and what Care Solace does is it hooks you up with a provider regardless of what kind of medical insurance you do or don't have.
Wonderful.
So they have a network of counselors that, depending on what your financial situation is, what kind of medical coverage you have, that they know which providers accept which coverage, and they can offer you a choice of coverage, or a choice of the type of therapist that you want to see. And there's also a couple of free introductory sessions with them to make sure that they're a fit for your family and that you're
that can be tough. Finding a therapist that is a good fit. It's I think that is one of the main things, and this is speaking personally for myself as well. It's one of the main things that make people hesitate before reaching out and
Right.
trying to book an appointment. Well, what if it's not a good fit? What if I don't? Can I fire my therapist? You know,
And where do I go afterwards?
right, and then what? For sure.
Yeah. So this company helps connect families with that, with the services that are outside of school. Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a wide range of behaviors as a result of the pandemic. I mean, we've always seen some behaviors, but you have some kids that are still reacting to that, getting overstimulated
Sure.
with
Yeah.
with crowds.
Don't I know it?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, with loud bells and crowds, and when they haven't had to be exposed to that for 2 years is a lot for some of our younger kids.
For sure, for sure. I mean, even I joke all the time, there are adults out there who forgot how to act in a social setting. I
Right.
feel like, you see an uptick there and expecting kids to know how to handle it. It's a lot.
Right.
Speaking of the emphasis on building character in the students, I know it's a huge talking point at both schools, I assume.
Yeah.
My experiences with Knightsen, but I'm sure at Old River. What programs and rewards are in place to encourage good citizenship at each school?
So you want to catch them being good. And that's one of the tickets that they have over at Old River Elementary is a caught being good ticket.
Nice.
And they draw a couple of names every week and call the kids' names over the announcement to come up and receive a prize. Quarterly, we have a recognition system that is based in the classrooms. At Knightsen, they're Happy Grams, and at Old River, they're called Otter Props. And the teachers can nominate students for, everything from working hard on homework and turning in your work on time to being a good friend and helping somebody out when they're, kind of down and out. But they name specifically the good deed or the behavior we love to see, and we acknowledge the student for that. Those come around quarterly.
Wonderful. Positive reinforcement is so huge.
Oh, yeah.
So huge.
Yeah.
Because what is it? My husband always would quote, and here is my goldfish brain goes, but basically about integrity being what you do when nobody's looking.
Right.
And I feel like the caught in the act and all of that really encourages kids to be their best all the time, even when nobody is looking,
Right.
So that's really wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, Knightsen has the character counts circle. Is it the same at Old River? Do they have those same kind of core characteristics that they focus on? I couldn't name them off the top of my head, but do they have those same ones over at Old River as well?
Actually, that was a focus of this year, coming back from the pandemic, that we really want our schools to have their individual cultures. And so for the longest time, the Knightsen motto of responsibility, citizenship, knowledge, trustworthiness has only had to apply to one school. And so when Old River came about, it was kind of rubber stamped over there, and through conversations with the staff and the principal about how are we going to keep Old River growing into its own culture. And we have to recognize it's not a rubber stamp of Knightsen. It's its own individual, vibrant culture. They came up with their own set of beliefs and the words that they want to see emulated. And it has to do with the word otter. And so I wish
Fun.
I could recite them right now, but I can't.
That's okay. That's
Yeah.
okay. Can look on the website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's there.
Well, wonderful. And the kids are all genuinely nice. I see them at pickup and they're all playing out front, or, they'll greet each other and say goodbye to each other. See you tomorrow. And it's really nice to see.
Yeah.
It's just really nice to see.
I know, hands down, when we have people that visit sites that come tour our site for whatever reason, whether they're a contractor doing construction, whether they're an educator, whether it's professional development, that's something they always have to say is that we have the best kids. And so really,
Well, it's true. I mean, I wouldn't send my kids there
I wholeheartedly
otherwise.
agree. Our kids are the best. Absolutely.
So, everybody's favorite topic, right? I know I have not heard the end of this since school started, but with the start of the free breakfast and lunch program for all California students, the district made the decision to transition their food services back to a cooking kitchen rather than a pre-prepared foods sort of thing. And it has been a huge hit. What spurred that decision to make the change?
Well, number one was we were not satisfied with the quality of the food that was coming to Knightsen. We had a service that was a vended meal company, so the meals were created in a huge kitchen off-site, and they were shipped to us fresh, not frozen. But the variety was not there. And for me, as a superintendent, quite honestly, the communication made it very difficult. When you have, kitchens that are cooking tens of thousands of meals a day and we're ordering 200 and we're kind of the end of the road. I mean, to be perfectly honest, we were treated like that. It's like we're a very small account and we're really hard to get out to in the Far East Bay. And so there has to be a better way. And really, we're talking about food. And food is something that everybody is tied to several times a day. And our only other option was to become more of a self-serving kitchen. And that's the model. Again, one of our neighboring districts is basically a cooking kitchen. We were able to model ours after the Byron school districts.
Oh, wonderful.
And that was through a partnership and just going over there and checking it out, them opening their doors to us. It took a tremendous amount of work over the summer to make this happen. Our CBO, Cindy Friedman, has spearheaded that effort to make the changeover. We have a wonderful food service crew that we had to restructure the entire department. We had to order a bunch of new equipment. So it was an investment. But when we look at the time invested, the money invested, everything that had to change, we have more of an ability to offer a variety. Our food quality is much better. We have complete control over the menu items. We're not just given, you have this or that. No, we can put what we need as long as it meets the state and federal requirements for serving foods in schools. And we're never going to run short on meals. So when we hear a lot about supply chain issues, we have the ability to change it up. We also have the ability to offer alternative meals. So if a student doesn't like what's being served, they can get an Uncrustable PB&J. They can get nachos. They can get grilled cheese. They can get...
And everything's whole grain, I saw, which is wonderful.
Everything's whole grain. I have purposely gone in to sample out the lunches just to see what they're like, and I haven't run into a bad one yet.
Elijah doesn't even bring lunch from home anymore.
Right.
He's all about
Right.
lunch at school and, of course, Pizza Fridays.
Yeah. And so parents, they say, well, we feel like we're bad parents because we're not sending our kids to school with food anymore. It's like, well, you don't have to. We have really good food at the schools.
Yeah,
and it's something that we're proud of.
And he's notoriously picky, so you're doing something right. And, of course, everybody loves the mac and cheese.
I love it.
I think you must put like magic or something in there. He raves about it every time.
Yeah.
And then my youngest, he just doesn't, he's impatient. He doesn't like to stand in line. He eats his sandwich and his vegetables from home and then hits the playground. He doesn't want to miss out on any of that recess time.
Well, and that was another thing I want to talk about really quick is we've instituted salad bars now. And so kids can get fresh fruits and vegetables every day, unlimited. So they can go back and get second servings of salad. Really pushing the vegetables has done a lot for our kids. That a lot of our kids didn't know what jicama root was. And now they've tried it. Some didn't like it, but some are like, oh yeah, this is great.
Just the fact that it's on the salad bar for them to try out should they want to is huge. We didn't have jicama root on our salad bar. So that's really fun.
Yeah.
That actually brings me to our next question about the fruit and vegetable bar. I'm a little jealous. I might come start having lunch at Knightsen. But with Knightsen being a large farming community, has there been any talk about collaborating with local farms to source the produce from the area?
Well, we're just getting our program off the ground right now. I'd love to be able to look into a way to access fruits and vegetables from our local farmers. Right now, we have contracts with the state that they source the fruits and vegetables to make sure that we have a good supply, so we receive them from them and our food vendors. So we'd have to look at what that would take in terms of getting our local farmers as food vendors to be able to supply that.
Perfect. I mean,
Yeah.
and let's be real, sourcing from the state, if they're sourcing it, it's probably coming from California anyway. So
Oh, yeah.
you might be getting local and not even realizing it.
Exactly.
So that's huge. And again, it's so nice to have that fresh option. I know my boys really love it. I mean, Wyatt, like I said, he's more about recess than the fresh option. But he's told me, he's like, oh yeah, I've checked it out. And there's been some times where we'll run a little bit late and they'll end up grabbing breakfast at school or something like that. So he enjoys that for sure. And it's just, again, it's a nice opportunity to just make things better.
Oh yeah.
For the district.
Well, and two, when a kid has a healthy breakfast and a healthy lunch, they're ready to learn. We have some kids that come to school that had to rush out of the house that wasn't able to get a breakfast, and so they're sitting in class hungry, not ready to learn.
Right.
And so we're seeing more positive behaviors, and we expect to see an upturn in student performance as a result of the food, the healthy food that we're feeding them. And
well, and let's be real. There are students and families in not just Knightsen, but in this entire area that do have food insecurity at home. And so the fact that they know they can come to school every day and receive meals that they might not receive otherwise is huge.
Right.
It's absolutely huge. And again, with the performance and the fact that even if your student is late, you also offer that second chance breakfast during the morning recess, which is great if you need to go in and grab a muffin or just a little snack to get you through to lunch. That's huge too. Also offering, and I know it's not just a Knightsen thing, it's a statewide thing, but the ability for students to have free breakfast and lunch, it takes that stigma away from, well, I forgot my money at home, or I've charged too many lunches and now all I can get is a peanut butter and jelly. Like, other kids see that. And sadly, there are kids who will weaponize that against their fellow students, and that never feels good for anybody.
Right.
So I just love everything that is happening there. Let's talk a little bit, small district, what challenges or rewards are seen with extracurriculars and electives, sports and music and theater. What's going on there in the schools?
Well, I think being a small school district puts more of an emphasis on, hey, what are you doing for electives and extracurricular activities after school? Our teaching staff, we have 30 or so teachers. And when we look at our upper grades, we have 3 at Old River and 5 at Knightsen. And really, we have to rely on what their specialties are for our elective wheel, what we offer our upper grades. When you get some of the bigger school districts, you have a dedicated art teacher. That's all that teacher does. You have a dedicated band teacher. That's all they do. Being a small district, that poses a problem. We can't afford to have a full-time art teacher. So we have to rely heavily on the skill set of our upper grade staff for those electives. The good part is that they can change. I mean, we can rely on art as being one of them, but in the past, we had some kids that were really interested in photography, and they all had cell phones. So it's like, hey, let's do a cell phone art class.
There's nothing like the camera you have on you.
Right. And so that was a pretty popular elective. We do have a music docent coming back. A long time ago, Knightsen used to have a music program. Budget cuts, that kind of went away. So we have been able to bring back a music docent, which isn't full-time during the day, but going to do a little music enrichment with our 5th graders. And then after school, music program with our 6th, 7th, and 8th. So it'll give our kids an opportunity to follow through in high school and join the band program in high school, which is
wonderful.
It's
wonderful.
We rely heavily on our parents clubs to support our sports program. So we have the annual sports dinner coming up. It's going to be a great time.
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's a fun evening, and the parents clubs are critically important to our sports programs. In most districts, parents clubs enhance them. Our sports programs exist because of them. My experience as being a middle school administrator, parent participation typically drops off a little bit in terms of the parents club activity in middle school, which I think Knightsen district is unique, that our parents club is very, very active at all levels.
And very tight knit.
Absolutely.
Nice. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, but we do, typically see a downturn in middle schools in comprehensive big districts, but at Knightsen, that's not the case. The parents clubs tend to turn it up even more in middle school, which
Well,
is
there's
awesome.
a lot of opportunities for middle school. There's science camp,
Yep.
there's the sports activities, and I know Mrs. Cakebread runs the drama club. They put on a performance. A lot of really great things. They just had a fundraiser Friday night,
Yep.
a sing-along to Encanto, which I heard was fun. Maybe a little loud for my older son, but he went, he checked it out, but all to raise money for students going to science camp in the future. And it's really nice. I know that they really try and take care of the students as best as they can and offer as many opportunities to them as well.
Yeah, our parents clubs, they both do a fantastic job in supporting our kids and students. The Encanto sing-along, we had over 100 kids.
Wow.
And so when you figure Knightsen School is 300, you had over a third of the student
amazing.
population at an event at night on Friday. It was really cool.
Super. And it was a beautiful night too.
Oh, yeah.
What else is on the horizon for the district?
Well, one of the things that makes Knightsen unique that we're looking to continue with is we have our own transportation facility, and we have just purchased 2 new buses, and which is critically important for us because for some of our kids, that's the only way they're getting to and from school. The second part is it opens up a lot of field trip opportunities for us, and so we're looking to get back into doing field trips now that society's open post-pandemic. We're stressing that we want field trips to enhance classroom experiences and not just be a standalone one-time event. The kids will get a lot more out of it when it's actually applied in class and referred back to. And so we're looking forward to getting back to field trips. We just hired a new bus driver.
Fun.
Which is awesome. So now we have 2 bus drivers. We had a substitute for the longest time, and he had done a great job for us, but we had to become more self-sustaining with a permanent driver there. Knightsen School and Knightsen School District is also planning ahead to the future. We have a development that's going in at the end of East Cypress that will bring about 100 homes into our district. It's going to be tract-style homes, which could, change the culture a little bit. Those aren't farm community, members that are moving into tract homes. We also have another development coming down Delta Road right around where Dwelly Farms is at.
Okay.
And so we're still getting information on what those homes will look like. But for the Knightsen School side of the tracks, that's the first real development that's going to be within our district boundaries to ever happen.
Interesting. So that will all feed directly into Knightsen Elementary, that not just potential for inter-district transfer, they're actually zoned to be in Knightsen District.
Yeah, those students will be in Knightsen. Which, again, we have to prepare our staff and our student body that we're going to be welcoming in new students. The nice part at Knightsen School is we do have some space available to increase the number of classrooms that we have. Our area that we actually have for growth and putting new physical classrooms is over at Old River. But the growth is actually happening on our side of the tracks.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting here.
It'll be a few years still.
I'm going to say it's going to be 5 years or so. We're going to see a little bit of it coming in from the Cypress development first. But, given the trajectory of where our, the housing market is, if everything holds true, it'll be a couple of years. That is, of course, unless there's a big reset.
Right, right.
Don't even want to think about that. But yeah, I'm going to say about 5 years. But realistically, when you start looking at cultural changes in systems, 5 years is a realistic timeline to start talking about it and the reality of it.
It's all right. It gives the boys time to get.
Yeah, right.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I think, oh, man, 5 years. It's crazy. Why it'll be an eighth grader?
Right. It goes quick.
Time's not real. I can't. What are you most looking forward to?
I'm most looking forward to watching the systems that we put in place continue to run and grow, because we've done a lot. This is my 5th year in the district. 2.5 full years have been a superintendent managing a district through a pandemic, which pretty much stopped everything except wiping down desks, giving COVID tests, and making sure everybody has a mask.
Making the phone calls.
Making phone calls.
I feel like your child's been in close contact.
Yeah,
please come get them.
And it's been the contact tracing. And now that we're back to as normal of a year as we've ever been, we're trying to bring back those systems that we hit stop on or pause on 2.5 years ago and bring those back, all the while keeping the momentum going for doing that.
Sure.
We're doing a lot of professional learning community work with our staff, which is a change in philosophy. It's working much more collaboratively than people are used to. It's sharing that data, which comes with opening yourself up to that vulnerability of saying, hey, I may need a little help on this topic right here, which there's nothing wrong with, but as educators, we're immensely proud of what we do. And to say that, hey, we need help, it's not necessarily a sign of weakness, but we all have areas to grow. And it's just a change in philosophy, a change in culture.
Well, and it's like you said earlier, one teacher, their strengths may lie in one area, while another teacher, their strengths lie in a different area. And for the two of them to be able to collaborate, that's huge, and just share information.
Right.
So what do you think is the biggest thing that sets Knightsen apart from other districts in the area?
I think it's our school structure of being a K-8 school. Our kids get to know one another for a long time, and families move through, so it's not just your siblings, it's your cousins and your neighbors, and it gives that real home feel. We have the opportunity to work with kids over 9 years, kindergarten through 8th grade. So it's not just your traditional middle school of 6, 7, 8. Hey, I got 3 years to get to know you and move you to high school, to where you get to see the kids grow from year to year. The collaboration between teachers that are able to pass on knowledge of what's been done with a child and how they respond to that next teacher is immensely critical. And it's a huge part of what we do as a district, because we're such a tight-knit group. We love to welcome people into the community, and we want to see their kids thrive and grow. And it shows in the way that our staff works with the children.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. That's it. It's a big part of what keeps us coming back every year.
Yeah, we're worth the drive.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like a 7-minute drive for us, so it's not too bad. But even if I were on the other side of town, we would still make that drive.
Yeah, I'm immensely proud of the work that's being done in our district. And it's hard seeing those 8th graders move to high school. But being that my own daughter is at Liberty High School, it's really nice to be able to walk on campus and see former Knightsen students doing some great things.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and Knightsen sets them up so well to be able to move ahead and do those great things. So definitely appreciative for that. Is there anything else that I haven't asked you that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, I think that pretty much covers it. We want to stay involved in our kids beyond elementary and middle school. So if any of our former students are out there that want to come back and say hi, we'd love to see you on campus. Be sure to check in at the office. We'd love an opportunity for former Knightsen students whether in high school or beyond, to come back and talk to our 8th graders, because it is such a unique environment to grow up in. To see the kids that have moved on and have found success to come back to talk to our kids is really important. If somebody would have told me as an 8th grader that I one day would be the superintendent at the Knightsen School District, I would have told them they were crazy. So really, the opportunity to come back and service the community and the families has really been just humbling experience. I'm thankful for the opportunity the Board of Trustees have given me. I'm going to work hard every day to not let the students and families down, and want our families to know out there that if you ever need me, come by the school, give us a call, shoot me an email, and I will call you back.
Can confirm. Oh, and I'm supposed to ask why you never let Mr. Beatty win in wrestling.
Oh gosh, you got that. I got to tell you, Mr. Beatty, heck of an athlete. Yeah, the only reason I won is because I had four years experience. He came out as a senior, and he was, for having 1 year of wrestling under his belt, he did very well. I'll just say experience and mat time was my friend.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And your daughter's continuing on.
Yeah. She's she placed 5th in the state last year and is looking to have a good year this year. She's a senior. It goes quick, so enjoy every minute. It goes so fast.
My oldest is a senior this year as well. Yeah.
So you're feeling it as well.
Oh, man.
We'll be crying together here in June. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here. It was an absolute pleasure to have you here and to chat with you and learn some stuff that I didn't know about Knightsen and about yourself. That is it for today's episode of Clocked In with the Press. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you, our listeners, taking the time to listen in. We're coming up on our 100th episode soon, and we absolutely couldn't have done it without you. If you would like to read more news stories of East Contra Costa County, you can do so through our website at www.thepress.net or through our Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at thepress_net. If you have any thoughts on this episode or any other before it, you can email them to podcasts@brentwoodpress.com. That's all I have for you today, but I look forward to next time. This is Melissa.
And I'm Harvey.
Clocking out.
Thanks again to this week's sponsor, Sip and Scoop. Remember that feeling of hearing the ice cream truck coming down the street as a kid? Bring back that feeling by visiting Sip and Scoop. They started out as a truck too, and now they have a brick and mortar shop right here in Brentwood, so you don't have to chase them down the block. Sip and Scoop has all kinds of high-quality desserts to satisfy any sweet tooth. Gelato, root beer floats, and iced coffees are just a few of my favorites. And the whole menu is available to go on DoorDash. Stop by their shop in downtown Brentwood and get your scoop on.